and summarize the core message of the event. Seema is a seasoned practitioner with about 2 decades of experience across product management, innovation, entrepreneurial roles, and is a TEDx speaker. A hands-on leader, she has steered multiple agendas in the innovation spectrum for global MNCs, domestic businesses, startup, etc. She currently works for Accenture as an associate MD in an innovation role. Prior to this, she was DGM Innovation at Vodafone, president and co-founder at a Bill and Melinda Gates portfolio social impact startup, and has contributed across roles as companies like BMC Software, Symantec, iCertis, and eGain. Welcome you, Seema. It's a pleasure to have you present our keynote. Over to you.
Thank you, Usha, and a very good morning to everyone. Such a wonderful start to a Friday with folks that two of my most favorite things, talking to women, of course, and on one of the most favorite topics, innovation. Such a great start to a wonderful event put up by the team. So a lot of kudos on that. So what we'll do today is we'll talk about innovating now and surfing the rapids. Before that, we'll talk a little bit about New Year resolutions. How many of us make New Year resolutions? I mean, I do, and I'm sure many of you do. And often fitness happens to be amongst the top goals that we sign up for our resolutions, right? Again, I'm sure there are a lot of heads nodding there. I'm going to tell you an interesting thing about 12th of January. So 12th of January is an interesting date. I'm not sure if you have heard of this research. Interestingly, Strava, who is a fitness social media company, studied about 31.5 million activities and figured that by 12th of January, most people fail to hold on to their resolutions. Yeah, 12 days, that's the life of something which we talk about so much. There's a lot of intent, there's a lot of effort, we really want to do it, but somehow it fades away. And why does that happen? There could be many reasons, because one, I think fitness by itself could mean many things to many people. It could be about running more, it could be about learning a new sport, it could be about starting a new diet, it could be about meditation, it could be about yoga, but it could be about so many things. If we kind of take that same thing to our corporate world, I think innovation is one of those things which at the start of every critical activity that we do, financial year planning, I think it's spoken more than enough that innovation is critical to all businesses to move ahead for multiple reasons. Either you want to avoid from being disrupted, or you want to go ahead and grab that extra market share. There are enough statistics that say people who are innovating or the leaders of innovators in the next 4 to 5 years could actually be leading market by up to 50% than some of the other competitors that they play with. So there is a lot of rapid change in the marketplace that we're seeing right now. And in the same sense, somehow, in spite of having the right intent, in spite of having a lot of effort, somewhere innovation still seems hard. Somewhere innovation still feels like you're trying to surf the waves, and it feels like it's not so easy and not so clear. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a simple thing. There is an exciting lineup about technology, about different leadership, culture. Through the rest of the 2 days, we'll pick the easy parts for us to talk about today. We'll talk a little about innovation and innovators, 7 habits of effective innovators and what can kind of help you get ahead in your journey, and some tips to boost your innovation quotient. Let's start with what really comes to your mind when you think of innovation. It could be a rocket or a spaceship that's launching, a scientist in a lab with a white coat on, or it could actually be Netflix creating the kind of disruption and having changed the way we consume entertainment, or Elon Musk with Tesla and launching a lot of things ahead. We tend to associate innovation either with certain things or companies or people. How often do we think I'm the best innovator that there can be? Often there are barriers that we are not even aware of, which kind of help us in getting in the way of what innovation could be for us. Or you could be grappling with choices, because innovation can mean a number of different things. Is it a means or is it an end? Is this something which is intentional, or is this something I'll kind of get it done along the way? Do I need creativity, or can I only do with a lot of expertise? Or do I need both? Joe spoke in the beginning about 4 types of innovation. Is it about incremental? Is it about radical? When do you do which one? Lot of grappling questions along the way. So we are going to take a moment. I'd like to request our audience today. I'd like to see what our audience thinks about innovation. If you can go to menti.com, you can open it up in your browser or on your phone. It'll ask you for a code 916606, and we'll take seconds to see what our audience today feels about it. So feel free to go ahead and start sharing. We'll be able to see what our audience thinks innovation means to them. Again, there are no right answers or wrong answers. Just take your shot and let's see what's the pulse with the crowd today. Super. So we already see there are responses coming in. Yeah, rapidly changing. That's lovely. We'll give it another few seconds. Great. We can see that the race for the top contestants is changing. And I think this actually is giving you a sense of how innovation in its own sense is relevant, and it can mean different things to different people, and yet it can be different things. So thank you everyone for enthusiastically participating. Punch in your inputs. We'll have that coming in. I'd also like to share with you what Innovation Board at idea2value.com, they ran a survey for innovation experts and did a deep study to see what really innovation was. And they came up with a number of different things which were rated by experts. Clearly, we can see that the verdict is still out, the community is still kind of split on it, and in the right way, because it might mean different things to different people. If we just peel this a little further, it boils down to 2 things. One is about the what. Is this something that's action oriented? And if we look at some of the options out there, say for instance, having an idea or a different perspective or thinking or moving forward, these are more action oriented in what we might try to do. However, there are a few, like addressing a real challenge or going after a new market or adding value to the customer, and eventually you would also want to do that for the company. So these are more destination or outcome oriented. And in the way of how you could go about those, just for simplicity, let's say left brain is the creative side, which is the radical side, and the right brain is, you know, where you're using a lot of your analytical skills, your deep technical skills and expertise to bring that about. So there are different skills you will use to bring this to life, and we can see that some are more predominantly left brain, there are some which are right brain, but often the ones which are related to outcomes will require you to bring your whole self to turn that innovation into the destination that you want. Or in some cases, it happens that you might have ideas, but it may not be distilled enough either. There is some confusion about where this is going to take you and so on. So it's important to take a pause and just identify what it means for you, because in the context of every organization or a team, it might mean different things at different times. But having an outcome and a value focus is something that is typically helpful. If we look at the 9 options we just saw, I mean, the innovator could actually be a person, it could be a team, or it could be the entire organization. And when you start looking as an innovator with that lens, it means different things. I mean, when you're building out your innovation competencies, your innovation mindset and culture and leadership in an organization, it is paramount to be mindful of being able to translate into something meaningful for an individual on the team, for a team that may be working on it, or for the organization, so that you're able to actually bring out the best of what you can do. And the first thing that typically is often very important is being purpose driven and having the courage to go on the road less traveled. because this is really about charting out areas which you may not have been able to do so. Again, it could be incremental, or it could be radical, or it could be disruptive. But these things are going to be very, very relevant irrespective of that. Bias for action and risk appetite, of course, not being able to instill those as individuals or organizations is going to be a barrier in moving your journey ahead along the innovation ambition. And of course, very important, typically top of mind, behavior skills and cognitive skills. And when you apply this to an organization, of course, there are various dimensions. We are not going to get into, exploring each of this in detail, but what is the focus? What is the vision that you're going after from an innovation standpoint? How does this translate for you, for your people, from a leadership culture and a competencies perspective in an organization? How are you going to be structured? What roles would be required? Is the current way of doing business good enough? Where is this going to be funded from? And of course, along the way, do you have the right frameworks, tools, and enablers to make this happen? And I'm sure if we just look at the few minutes that we've spent, there are already questions that we have. I mean, there is a state of dilemma. I mean, what does it mean? How can I identify where do I need to go? How do I get there? Who do I take along with me? What needs to change? Because innovation is about change, and innovation is about making change at scale, at speed, often. So we'll talk about a few habits that can help you get ahead in this journey. Again, there is no specific. Use these habits to apply in the context of your role, in the context of your goal, because often depending on who is the sponsor, who is the actor, what is it that you're going after, the way you manifest it might change slightly, but largely these would still be applicable for you. So I've been on a number of different sides of the table, and I've seen that often it comes back to some of those habits to kind of move the ante ahead. The first one is intention. How often do you take the time to pause and think, what really is the innovation ambition? What is the innovation charter? Again, this could be applicable for an organization, or it could be for a team, and so on. It helps to look at your ambition across different strategic time horizons. The focus often tends to be in the now because it's important. That's where we're competing in the market. That's what we're building for. That's what we're taking to our customers. It doesn't matter if it's a product or a service, but often that's the place where we're playing. This model is based on the McKinsey's innovation ambition metrics. There are a lot of other tools, feel free, but I think the essence is similar. It helps to focus on the immediate, which is the now. Look at the near term, which is the next couple of years that you want to go after, which is where you're going to see some growth in the adjacent areas. And future, which is where you're going to do your big bets, which is where you're going to actually go ahead and look at creating something which is going to create more value for you in the long term, in a 1 to 5 year or a 1 to 7 year horizon. And having a clear view of this becomes extremely critical. Having done that, I think if there is one single most habit that you might want to prioritize about any other is about bringing the balance in what you're trying to do. Having a clear sense of the ambition or the innovation charter, it becomes easy for you to go after the goal. If we go back to our resolution, I mean, if my New Year resolution, for instance, was I'm going to walk for 10 minutes every day, or I'm going to be on the treadmill for 10 minutes every day, maybe that's easier. But if I just put my goal as I want to be more fit, it's quite likely that I'm going to fall off the habit very quickly. Here we can see the focus on the first is around value exploitation, because that's something that you're already delivering to your market, to your clients, and you want to exploit more of that. The second is about expansion. How can you make your pie a little wider? And the third is about creating new value oftentimes, and that requires exploration. So while one is on an exploitation side of it, the extreme right is on the exploration side of things. And as we see, what it takes to bring these about is really different things in how we operate. It could be about who is driving it. It could be about the type of competencies that you need. In some cases, while you are taking your existing products to the next level, you need your best thinkers and your experts from a domain side, from a technology side, from your business model side to be able to take it ahead. But if you're exploring completely new areas, maybe you want to experiment a lot more and look at different things. The same for teams and leadership. Ambidextrous leadership in teams becomes extremely important as you start shifting right. Again, it's a matter of scale. Here, I think one key thing is it does not mean that you kind of go ahead and bring people for each of the box. In some cases, yeah, that might be warranted for, and we might need to do that. But often a key thing is to be able to repurpose and align our thinking to be able to do that. It might require that we acquire some new skills to do that as people, as teams, as leaders, but being mindfully able to do that actually is what will help you get cover across the spectrum. The key thing to keep in mind, often that seems to work, is while there are multiple hats and they need to be worn, the same person may be wearing multiple hats in different contexts, but don't leave any hat on the table. I think that's perhaps one of the checkpoints for your second habit. The third is about nurture. Like we spoke, I mean, there is a time and place for things. Often, one of the myths that I've very commonly heard is innovation is hard and it cannot be taught. Or innovation is something which is just in the nature of people. People are either creative or people are very geeky, and that's right. A study in the Innovators DNA by Clay Christensen, the godfather, for lack of a better word, of innovation, actually says innovation is 30% nature and 70% nurture. The problem is when we try to kind of mix those out. If we look at the image on the right, it's almost like a meal getting ready for a cruise. About 50,000 meals, they need to be impeccable. They need to be same. And I think being able to deliver to that requires people to innovate at a different level of automation, at a different level of experience, at a different level of being responsive. And on the right side, it is about creativity and going at different things. So being very mindful and nurturing both sides becomes a very critical habit in your journey. The fourth habit is around experimentation. Well, we as humans often tend to think about success, or our environment makes us think about things with the lens of success. It rarely happens that either as students or when we are in our working professionals or even in our personal lives, do we talk about where we have the fear of failures or actual failures. In fact, at one of the organizations where we used to run the innovation agenda, this was the single most biggest barrier that we had. People were just afraid to try because they thought they might fail and it might not look good. And as a joke, we used to say that maybe we need to, kind of get t-shirts printed for the entire team which said, I tried to do an experiment and I'm proud to fail, to put it out there, to make people feel okay that it is fine to fail. Of course, it needs to be done within the safe nets. There is a time and place, again, for experimenting and the scope of your experimentation. But it is extremely crucial to build a habit where we as people and as organizations can actually encourage and reward experimentation. And that includes failures. It's not just about trying something that we feel confident will succeed. It is actually about going in the uncharted land and trying to do something and see how that fares. If you're able to remove the fear for failure, we can see people start looking at things differently, and that rapidly translates into different dimensions. I've seen that personally in a lot of my experiences. The fifth one, I mean, this kind of is not new, but I think it becomes important in the context of innovation for two reasons. One, because innovation includes a dichotomy at all times. You're between two very different types of choices that you might want to make. On one side, you might be looking at becoming a deep expert or acquiring a new technology or acquiring a new product or taking something to market, which is very, very differentiated, and you cannot do that without getting into the depth of the thing. But at the same time, there is going to be ambiguity along the way. There is going to be some open-endedness if you want to explore and unlock something that has not been done. Do you and your teams feel comfortable in going into the uncharted? Are they comfortable wearing different hats in different contexts? You will, on one day, you might need to be an expert, and in another context, you might actually break down the rules and actually see what are the orthodoxies that are coming in the way of being successful and being effective in being able to go out and try. That is perhaps just being able to push your boundaries and expand your comfort zones. The sixth one, agility. Again, I think these times more than ever have emphasized on the importance of the need to be agile. And it is amazing how businesses, people, the community has turned around so quickly in trying to kind of keep things running despite the crisis that we are all faced in. So I think agility becomes much, much more important. The one thing when we apply agility to innovation that I'd like to kind of, just focus on and take a minute is, it's like going back to our fitness example. It's like running on the treadmill and running on a track. Often you might find teams taking things with a lot of passion, tinkering around with ideas, throwing things out, building some prototypes, and a lot of stuff. But ensure it's not like running on the treadmill. Have you ever seen a sports person or an athlete who will or be at a sports and they only use the treadmill as a part of readiness? No, it's not that. They actually go out and run on the tracks, and when you do that, you learn new things. You learn new things about the track. You learn about endurance. You learn about how is it that you can do the best and how you can optimize the performance in the different conditions that you may be put out. In some cases, the tracks may work out for you and you may like it, and in some cases you may not, but you will have learned something new than running on the treadmill. Again, that is important, but it's not sufficient. I think that's an important habit to keep in mind when we are trying to apply agility to innovation. And lastly, it's about measure. If we look at it, this is a no-brainer. Being able to measure is perhaps the single most thing that can tell us if we are headed in the right direction and if we are making progress. But before we are able to effectively measure, it requires us to take a step back and see, do we have well-crafted or well-understood innovation goals across the company? Does it translate into something that everyone understands? When you're in a board meeting or the CEO is doing an address for the leadership and they refer to innovation and the leadership teams are driving it down to the person who is on the team, is there a common vocabulary? Are they interpreting it and perceiving it and seeing it as an ambition with the same lens? The answer may be yes, or the answer is maybe not. It's an important one to start, because what you start with is what you are going to measure. One of the things where often things tend to get hard with innovation is going back to our activity and outcome based view that we saw. Sometimes it's a lot of activity, and it could be of different times. It might be about running a hackathon, getting some ideation going, creating a new prototype, working on enhancements or something incremental with the client. But sometimes when you look back at the end of the fiscal year and see, did I release something new to the market? Was I able to grab that new market that I wanted to? Did I get a new product line or a service going? The answer might be no. And then it might seem that the effort is not going in the right direction, but what was done in the first place was not done with an intention of reaching there. It's almost like, I tend to use this analogy often, it's like planning your vacation. When you plan a vacation, you do it to the T. It's not just about going away for like a few days, but you decide where is it that you want to go, what time, with whom, which are the means, and so on. It's the same with innovation, and it becomes easy like when you're planning a holiday with the family, because everyone has their own interpretation of a holiday. Make it measurable and make the measurements consistent across the company, so that we are able to bring the maximum of the effort that's going in this direction. If we look at how different companies measure innovation, again, there's a lot of variation, like we saw with the definitions, and there is no one right answer, because it depends on what is your ambition and what are your goals and who is going after it. The common ones tend to be CSAT, top line growth, about shareholder value, your new product vitality index, and a number of different goals around those. And the most innovative companies tend to have about 4 to 5, but some may, which follow like a lot of rigorous process, go up to 8 metrics in their journey. To just give you an insight how metrics can sometimes change what you might be doing, and it ties back to a lot of habits that we spoke about, but I kind of want to use that opportunity to kind of summarize here, because this is where it often will come back and become very, very obvious. 3M and Google, two very innovative companies. I think in the technology world, Google and their practices actually inspire a lot of people to want to have that extra time, do something. You're not answerable. You can tinker around with your code and come up with something, and it's all right. And I think it works in its sense. If you take one metric, let's say new product vitality index. Google spends about 15% of R&D investment, and their return and the NPVI is 1%. And for 3M, they have been doing innovation methodically for quite some time, and I think the way they approach innovation is a little different. And with about 6% R&D investment, they have about 35% of new product vitality index. I think that just demonstrates how being able to get down into the tracks and really see what you want to go after, and starting with an outcome and measuring it along the way can really help you bring a difference and make a difference in this whole thing. And while these habits are important, just a quick one on some common pitfalls that tend to happen. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the iceberg model of competencies. Typically, what you see on the top is skills and knowledge. A lot of effort by individuals and companies is spent here. This is what is the model calls as the acquired or the learned capabilities. It could be trends, technology, domain, specialization. This is absolutely necessary, but it's often not sufficient. It helps to also look at the triads and mindsets, what is below the iceberg, and that's a big part of helping you to get ahead in your innovation journey. The values triads, the soft skills, the big picture. Do you have the right DNA to be able to get ahead in the journey? And this is that one single thing that is actually going to distinguish effective performance between two competitors in the marketplace, between two companies that are trying to avoid being disrupted and that are trying to disrupt the others. And this is the one thing that needs to be consciously built. This tends to be a common pitfall. So it helps to be a little mindful of the stuff below the iceberg as well. While we spoke about a lot of things, and it's going to take some time to get all of that in place, and in the context of your innovation journeys, maybe we'll just use a couple of minutes to talk about few tips that can help you jumpstart on boosting your innovation quotient starting now. And again, like we spoke in the beginning, this could be something that's crucial to be applicable at an organization level. For leaders, I think leaders really can be such a key glue in translating the innovation ambition and charter into what can be done and the outcomes of that, and the innovators themselves. Again, like we saw, the leader also may be an innovator or may have a team of innovators, so it's all interchangeable, and you would know based on your context, there may be one or multiple of those that apply. But for organization, really start with, if you don't already have this very clear, take a moment with your teams to kind of see what does innovation really mean for us, and what context, what time horizon are we talking about, and getting ready for that. And tie it back to your goals, because that's how we live our lives within companies, and that's how we execute. And it is hard to be able to make material progress on this without being able to drive the right set of culture. I mean, enough said, if we don't foster the right culture, it actually is strategy for breakfast, and you don't want that to happen for your innovation journey. As leaders, you may want to work with your teams very, very closely on what are the department goals. Is it really about a title? Who does what? Do you need a title? How does this translate into what we are already trying to do? Is it going to contribute to the core, or is it going to contribute to the growth? And then we saw there are a number of different factors that will help you align with bringing those to action and to be able to realize the value that we are trying to go after. I think one thing which is very key when it comes with innovation is, again, it's not a diet. It's not about that one meal you want to change. It's not about that one extra ritual you want to start, or that one extra exercise or fitness regimen that you want to start. It's almost like a lifestyle change, and it requires support. So please do reach out to your teams and help them change the game. And lastly, for innovators, I think it's all about understanding the value chain and joining the dots. I think as engineers, as technologists, as people who code, you are the best people to find solutions. You are the best people to take technology, get your hands dirty, and create some magic with that. The magic will result into a much larger value if you're able to start with the problem first and then go after it, rather than take a hammer and go around finding a nail. And lastly, this is something that I often hear as a question that comes back saying, but do I need to do it? Do I not need to do it? Who does it? Whose charter is innovation after all? So, my little tip out there is don't really wait for a title to entitle you to be an innovator. You're an innovator right now. I hope a lot of hands are going up, and you have you truly believe that all the fears and barriers that you thought, again going back to where we started, the light bulbs, the codes, while they're all great and we may need it, they are not necessary. I think each of us is an innovator in our own way, and you must give yourself the permission to be one without needing for a title to entitle you for driving innovation in your personal context. So we'll summarize with that. There is a Chinese proverb you may have heard. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and they say the second best time is now. It's the same for innovation, and more so now, given the times that we are in. The crisis is fast forwarding things for us to re-innovate, to innovate, to come up with ways which we have not thought for, which we had not planned for. No better time than now for us to innovate. And with that, we'll just hear it back from our audience again. Maybe we'll take a moment to go back to Menti. This time you may need to enter a new code. The code is flashing on your screens. And let's go ahead and see what would be that one thing that you want to start doing to increase your innovation quotient, starting now. So here we have the code. If you can just go back to Menti, we'll take 30 seconds or so for people to start punching in their ideas. This is like, again, going back to resolutions, what is that one thing that you think you want to start doing? And the good news is we are already in August, so we don't have the fear of the 12th of January. Perfect, listening more. That's great. We can already see some very creative and actionable ideas and thoughts coming out from our audience. This is lovely. Yeah. Asking questions, that's my favorite too. And I'll share this with you. At Google, they say when they run meetings, they don't ask for solutions, but they talk about questions. So it's again a culture thing. I think every little thing that we do, because culture is what makes us happen. And that's one small change we can start making in our routine starting today, and that doesn't require any special permission. Again, I think you can get together with your co-workers, you can get with your team members, pull in your managers and leaders, find that one thing that you want to start doing differently. Another tool that I found very, very useful as you go around some of this deliberation is, what is the one thing you want to start doing and what is the one thing you want to stop doing? Often these are small barriers that come in the way for us to be able to make meaningful change. So I think this is lovely. We'll have the ideas coming in. In the meanwhile, before I wrap up, and I'm reading each of those for those of you who have already punched your ideas on, and I wrap up. If there's anything that you want to share about innovation or about the session, I'm all ears. I just wanted to flash this up so that you can go ahead and put your thoughts in. It's been great to talking to a virtual audience. I'm wishing everyone a lot of resolve to innovate now. Thank you everyone. Over to you, Usha.
Thank you, Seema. We'll be taking a few questions from the audience. It's just coming in, and yes, seems like we have some time to take these questions. So one question from the audience is how to manage the risk of exploratory innovation. Should we leave our jobs to build a startup where there is no guarantee of time-bound success? I'm sure you get this a lot. Or is there a different way?
I think it's a very interesting question, and it means about when we say exploratory innovation. Of course, exploratory innovation is looking at something that is not as well defined. There is an unmet need, and you're trying to see what are the implicit needs out there that can be satisfied. Again, I think one of the myths that often comes is you need to be a startup to be able to do that. Of course, it's easy when you're smaller, you can be more nimble and you can take a focused problem and go after. But I think that question is applicable to both a startup as well as a large company or a larger organization. So if you recollect it, it really boils down to no, you don't have to leave your job and go start a new venture of your own. Within your company, you would find a place where there is, and again, it goes back to your charter, right? I think which is why it always helps to start from there. There is going to be a charter which is wanting to look at what are the big bets that you want to take, where are the uncharted places. Get talking. If you're a leader yourself, carve out the right organization structure, the right funding, and the right people to be able to do that. As a reminder, maybe we'll quickly go on to that one slide to remind you of that. But you don't need to leave your organization to do that. Well within your corporate jobs, you can do it. Just try and understand, join the dots, like we said, understand the value chain, join the dots, ensure you're in the right place. If you're the leader, put the right team. If you're an individual who is aspiring to go there, keep in mind what it requires for you to be effective and successful. And it should be easy for you to make the transition then. I hope that helps.
Sure, Seema. The next question we have is, how do you transform and follow through an idea to an innovation? People a lot of times drop their ideas considering that idea might not be a novel idea even without pursuing it to the next level. What would you suggest to keep up the enthusiasm and follow through till the end?
I think it's an interesting question, and it happens very often, right? And I think it boils down to, if you start with an end in mind, it becomes easy. So when we say I have an idea and you will iterate upon it, it's again like the treadmill and running on the ground. Are you iterating on the idea in isolation? Maybe you had something on the, it's like a behind an envelope thing, you brought it to life, you've done something with your team. Have you been able to take it with a potential user where you're able to get some feedback on that? I think that becomes extremely critical. The other thing which helps often in being able to triangulate this is looking at it from the client or your users or your customers' point of view. Often we start with, so empathy, design thinking, tools like those will help you bring that element of thinking into your solution, which may be technology driven or maybe an incremental change that you're trying to drive. But if you check for the relevance from a customer standpoint, are you able to bring the thinking? Are you able to get on the thoughts and just put it out there and validate? Sometimes you may not have access to clients. I get that in a lot of large companies, or even at startups, you may not be able to speak to your sponsors or buyers or users directly. But can you take it to the sales people? Can you take it to people who are deploying it? Can you take it to people who are supporting your products? Those can be great starting points for you to start taking it ahead before you dump it. And sometimes maybe all you're doing is the need is a little different than what you thought. So you just need to repurpose it and pivot it to be able to address the need that they might have. But that will only come after you're able to do some validation around your hypothesis. Yeah?
Yes, Seema, that makes a lot of sense. Yes, before I move to the thank you note to you, we have a couple of questions for the audience, which I'm going to ask on your behalf, and we can look for some answers there. So I'm sure you all heard Seema's keynote very keenly, and we would like to, just have a small test around it for you guys. So can you just go and list any 3 of the habits of highly effective innovators? She shared 7. So you could probably use the chat window on the right, use the state section, and you can drop your answers in there. I'll pause for 30 seconds here. We have answers coming in, Seema.
Perfect. For once, it's good to not
really, you have like really inspired a lot of people. I can just see the chat window scrolling.
I'm glad. No, I think that's the purpose. Again, I think as we wrap this up, it's hard, but it's very doable. I think it's about making it small steps. Again, don't get bogged down by the big thing. I think no one qualifies to run for a marathon on day one. It's all about quantifying it, getting it there, doing the right things, building a community. Again, innovation I think is a team sport. Don't do it alone. Find your right organization partners, get your mentors, bounce off ideas. Don't be afraid to fail. I think there is it's all in our heads often. I mean, it'll be hard, of course. We'll need to figure out, but yeah, go out and run, check some tracks. We'll learn something.
Absolutely. I think we will take the next question right now. So I would put it as, what is the percentage share of innovation between nature and nurture? She mentioned this in her talk. So I repeat the question, what is the percentage share of innovation between nature and nurture?
Yeah, this is again one of those, right? It's my favorite ones. I mean, people think you really need to come up with the most wackiest of the ideas. You need some very different type of creative juice, or you need to be like a geek. And often we are in betweens, right? I mean, there is no one way. You take a context and apply to that. I think once you start realizing that, it becomes easy to kind of move left or move right.
I mean, people, there's so many people who have listened to you. I'm not at all surprised. All of them are getting the right answers.
Perfect.
All right, then we are on time, Seema. So thank you so much. I'm sure I speak for everyone present here when I say, I'm deeply motivated by your talk and have uncovered an immense drive to innovate right now. To summarize, the key takeaways from this talk for me are that all of us need to incorporate these 7 habits of highly effective innovators that you just mentioned into our own lifestyles. And 2, it is very important to encourage even failed trials and experimentation for innovation to thrive. Thank you so much, Seema.
Sure. Have a great 2 days.
Yeah, we have started with a great message from you to begin our event with. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Now, Shilpa will be introducing our next esteemed guest, who will be presenting a talk that is highly relevant in the current situation. I personally have been very inspired by the upcoming guest and his talks. So hang on there. Over to you.